poop shelves, confusing door locks, and invisible light switches? Those are all things that can be quite confusing when you come to Germany or the US for the first time. So let's talk about all the bathroom differences so that you're hopefully a little less lost than myself when you first use the toilet or take a shower over there. Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. And I think it's been almost 2 whole years since I made this video about how German and American homes are different. And while I did talk a lot about the different windows and ventilation systems and outlets and doors and all of those crazy things that I never even thought about before I moved abroad, I didn't really go into full detail about bathrooms because that's just a whole topic by itself. So instead, I promised you guys to dedicate a separate video to this because I know from personal experience how lost you can feel when you're in a new country, in the bathroom, and everything is different. So let's finally talk about German versus American bathrooms. And yes, this includes the infamous weird German toilets. Or should I say weird American toilets? But let's start at the beginning with entering a bathroom. And yes, this is the point when a lot of visitors in Germany already get very confused because they don't want to pee in the dark and they're like,
where in the world are Germans hiding their light switches?
Well, in a lot of bathrooms, especially in older homes in Germany, the light switch is actually on the outside of the bathroom. So you'll have to turn on the light before you go in and close the door. And guys, as someone who grew up in Germany, let me tell you, the fact that you have to remember to turn on the light before you go in isn't the only reason why this is inconvenient. It's also literally every sibling's favorite activity to mess with you while you're sitting on the toilet and turn the light off on you. Fortunately, at my parents' home, the light switch was inside the bathroom, so I only had to worry about this when visiting friends or relatives or when we stayed at a hotel or something. But believe me, it's a whole thing. Having the light switch outside of the bathroom mainly goes back to old safety regulations, which is why it's more common in older German homes, but you'll sometimes find it in newer homes as well. I'm not sure why, maybe just out of tradition and habit? Now, I have heard that this also exists in older homes in the US, but I've personally never encountered this here, and I do know that many Americans who visit Germany aren't familiar with this concept, so I'm assuming that it's just a lot more common in Germany. I even found this poem in the comment section of the house video, where I briefly mentioned this topic too, and I think it absolutely deserves to be in this video. It's called Ode to the German Light Switch by David Meinhardt. Oh, German light switch, how I look for you in nocturnal vain. My hands futilely search for your enlightening presence inside the dark room. But Alice, you mock me, outside the gloomy chamber, patiently waiting to illumine my path, even before my journey begins. Shout out to David, I think this poem perfectly summarizes the struggle. So after you finally found the light switch, you're probably going to want to lock the door behind you. And this is the moment that I struggled with in the US when I first came here, because there are many different ways to lock a bathroom door here, and there were a few moments there where I was pretty lost. What I was used to from Germany is that a bathroom door is either locked with an actual room key that would look like this, or, and this is the more common option, it would be a little lever, like this one, that you turn towards the door frame, which then moves the bolt into the door lock. On the outside, it'll look like this usually, and when that line is vertical, it means that the bathroom is free, and when it's horizontal, it's occupied. This also usually allows you to unlock the bathroom from the outside with a coin, which can be very helpful when you have children that accidentally lock themselves into the bathroom and can't get out of there. Or I also know that in public bathrooms in Germany, that's how they sometimes lock the door from the outside when the stall is out of order. Now, as I said, in the US, there are a lot of different options as to how to lock a bathroom, and the one that I found really confusing at first was this one, when there's basically a button in the middle of the doorknob or door handle, and when you push the button in, the door is locked. But you can't test if it's actually locked because it automatically unlocks as soon as you turn the doorknob or push down the handle from the inside. So basically, it's only locked from the outside. And while that may seem kind of genius because you don't have to actively unlock anything, it's really tricky when you're not used to the system because there's no way to find out if the door is actually locked now, and it made me feel super insecure at first. Another very confusing system is where it basically looks like there is no lock on the bathroom door, and you lock it by pushing the whole doorknob in and turn it. That's really not intuitive at all. Now, this option is a little more intuitive, fortunately, and it's a very common one. It's what I have at my house, for example, where you have a tiny little twist lever on the doorknob that you turn, but instead of moving the actual lock with this, like in Germany, this basically just blocks the doorknob from moving. That's actually the same thing with the other methods too. You don't really move an actual door lock in American bathrooms. You basically just lock the doorknob, or the handle, if that makes sense. The only exception that I can think of where a door actually does lock physically is when the door has a deadbolt, so basically what we have in Germany, or in public bathrooms, you'll also sometimes find these mechanical locks where you simply slide or turn a latch, but we'll get more into public bathrooms later. Okay, so after you've turned on the light, locked the door, you're most likely gonna wanna use the toilet, and that's when it gets really interesting. By the way, in case you're trying to Google poop shelf during that next part, but would like to stay anonymous with that, because let's face it, most people don't know about German poop shelves and might jump to some weird conclusions, you might want to consider using ExpressVPN to keep all of your browsing history anonymous. You can also access the British Premier League and some of your favorite movies and TV shows with ExpressVPN. And I even have an offer for you to get 3 months for free, but I'll tell you more about that after the toilets. So, the biggest mystery of German houses among tourists and people who move to Germany are most definitely the German poop shelves. That's not the official name, of course, but it's kind of what the internet refers to them as. And I mean, it's the perfect description for what it is. For those of you who've never been to Germany, some of our toilets, mostly older ones, look like this. So instead of just being filled with water, there's this little display or shelf that your poop and pee will land on before you flush it down. Yep, you heard right. Your poop won't fall directly into the water. Those toilets are called Flachspüler in German, by the way. Now, the question of all questions among non-Germans is, why Germany? Why do you want your poop to sit on a little shelf before you flush it? And guys, I'm about to lift the best kept secret among us Germans, and it is we have no clue. I mean, I did grow up with them, but when my parents renovated our bathroom, they actually got rid of the shelf toilet. And I think that's the trend pretty much everywhere in Germany. Newer toilets usually don't have that anymore, and I've never even really heard a German talk about these toilets before I dove into this whole expat bubble. So in my personal experience, it's just something that's normal to us. Like, it's one way that toilets can look like, not all of them do, and we don't really question it a lot. Now, of course, I did my research for this video, and the two main reasons or advantages of those toilets that are usually mentioned in this context are number 1, that you avoid splashing, and number 2, that it's practical for inspecting your feces for health reasons or when you actually need to get a stool sample. But to be completely honest, those reasons don't seem super convincing to me. I mean, most people don't need to take a lot of stool samples in their lives, and I feel like the advantages of things falling straight into water totally outweigh the whole splashing aspect. It's so much easier to clean and it doesn't smell as bad. But there are more toilet differences than just the poop shelf, which again has been slowly disappearing in Germany over the last few decades. Even the Tiefspüler, so the German toilets that just have water in them, have considerably less water in them than the standard American toilet, where the water often fills up almost the entire toilet bowl. That was super weird for me when I first came to the US. It almost looked like the toilet was clogged, but nope. It's supposed to be like that. And when you flush it, it doesn't just go straight down like it does in Germany, it actually swirls around in there a few times before it goes down, which is also a little weird, America. The upside of this, however, is that you don't have to clean after yourself quite as much in the US. In Germany, since the water is lower, your poop will probably touch the actual toilet bowl and you'll have to use the toilet brush after you're done. That's pretty normal to us Germans. Every toilet, even in public bathrooms, has a toilet brush next to it, while here in the US, I've actually found that a lot of places don't even have one, and I think that's simply because you don't usually need it. I've also noticed that while many modern toilets in Germany are mounted to the wall, and often even have the toilet tank built into the wall like this, that's not something I've ever seen in the US. American toilets are much more traditional in this regard. They're mounted to the floor and have this normal, old-fashioned tank that sits on top of it. and almost always have a lever to flush. In Germany, most toilets have 1 or 2 buttons that you press. The smaller one is for when you need less water, and the big one is for when you need a full flush. So this is a common measure to save water. There's also a big difference in how Germans and Americans pee, by the way, specifically men, that I talked about in this video. So if you want to know more about that, you're gonna have to check out the video. What I will address real quick though is that you can expect the toilet paper to be a little bit different, because traditionally Germans are mainly known as folders, so we fold our toilet paper and therefore like it a little bit thicker, while Americans are actually more known to be scrunchers, which is why in public bathrooms, but also in some homes, you'll find the toilet paper to be a lot thinner. And yes, bidets are a thing in Europe as well, but they're not actually super common in Germany. You'll only find them in a few homes. They're much more common in Italy, Portugal, and France, for example. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, which has been a loyal companion to me for years. It reroutes your internet connection through a secure encrypted server, which helps you stay anonymous on the internet and protect your information. You can kind of picture this like sending a postcard. If you're sending data over an unencrypted internet connection, it's technically just open to read for anyone who gets their hands on it. And what ExpressVPN does is basically put an envelope around your postcard by creating a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. I personally always use ExpressVPN when I'm on a public Wi-Fi, like at a coffee shop or at the airport, to protect myself from hackers, but I also use it at home a lot, for a different reason, because since ExpressVPN has servers in 94 different countries worldwide, it also allows you to access other countries' Netflix selections and just in general content that is geo-blocked in your region. All you have to do is just change your online location. I usually pick Germany, and then I can watch things on Netflix without any ad breaks that aren't available on the American Netflix, such as Modern Family, for example, one of my all-time favorite shows. But you can also watch South Park or Friends if you use the UK server, for example, or The Office through the Australian server. This works for other streaming platforms as well, by the way, including Hulu, Prime Video, and many more. That's how I was able to watch the documentary about Bastian Schweinsteiger on the German Amazon Prime, for example. Even for a non-sports person like myself, that was an absolutely amazing watch. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're a soccer fan and located outside of the US, this also allows you to get the cheapest Premier League subscription on the market, which is through the American streaming platform Peacock Premium for only $4.99 a month. So ExpressVPN really is super helpful in all kinds of different situations. I use it all the time, and if you want to try it too, you can now use my link in the description box below, expressvpn.com/Feli from Germany, to get 3 whole months for free. Okay, so to get back into our little scenario, we just used the toilet, and now, of course, we'd like to wash our hands. The good thing is that there aren't a lot of things that could confuse you, but what I just can't wrap my head around is that it's very standard in the US to have 2 different handles on your sink, one for hot and one for cold water. Not that that doesn't exist in Germany, but it's considered a more old-fashioned thing and has pretty much been replaced with mixer taps everywhere. And mixer taps do exist in the US, of course. I see them a lot in kitchen sinks, definitely in showers, but for whatever unknown reason, it seems like even in new constructions or when people renovate their bathrooms, they often choose to go with a 2-handle faucet. And I just don't understand why. Mixer taps are like 10 times more practical, especially in the bathroom, while you'll maybe have your hands full of soap or a toothbrush in your hand or something. You don't want to have to fiddle around every time to get the perfect temperature. Last but not least, let's talk about the showers. And let me tell you, I had a whole moment when I wanted to take a shower the very first time I was in the US, because I just couldn't figure out how to make the water come out of the shower head instead of the faucet. So I put on a towel and walked back out of the shower to ask my exchange partner, because this was part of a high school exchange in 10th grade, how to turn on the shower. So to help you avoid awkward situations like these when you come to the US, a lot of showers here have a knob like this one. By turning it left or right, you regulate the temperature. By pulling it out, you turn the water on. And by pushing it back in, you turn it off. The water will start coming out of the faucet usually, and to have it come out of the shower head instead, you usually just pull another little knob like this one. That same mechanism with the little knob definitely exists in Germany too. I just personally wasn't used to it at the time because my family always had showers where there were 2 separate handles, one for the faucet and one for for the shower head. Also, when it's bathtub, the faucet is usually located on the long side of the bathtub in Germany, while it's usually on the short side, right above the drain, in the US. Just a little side note. What also took me some getting used to was that in many American showers, you'll find a fixed shower head instead of a handheld one, which is the default in Germany. And to respond to the comments underneath the home video from 2 years ago, yes, I know handheld shower heads do exist in the US. You can buy one if you preferred, and many bathrooms do come with one, but I've personally mostly seen fixed shower heads in the US, in older homes, newer homes, and in hotels. Many people also commented that I need to see more of the US because the house differences I mentioned were all very specific to Ohio, supposedly. So just a quick disclaimer, I have been to over 20 US states, and of course there are many regional differences, and most of my experiences are with homes here in the Cincinnati area. But when I see something repeatedly in American homes that I've never seen in my entire life in Germany, I personally do consider it a difference that's worth mentioning, even if your home doesn't look like that. With that being said, in my personal experience, it's just very common, if not more common, in the US to find showers with a fixed shower head where the pipe goes up somewhere within the wall, while in Germany, almost every shower has a handheld shower head like this one, which is super practical because you can adjust the height, you can simply take it off if you don't want to wash your entire body, and it's also really helpful for cleaning the shower or bathtub. From personal experience, cleaning a shower without a removable shower head is just a pain in the ass. One thing that I 100% prefer in the US though are the shower curtains. I don't know why this isn't the standard in Germany, but whenever you do have a shower curtain in Germany, and from what I've seen in other European countries as well, it's usually just one plastic curtain that you have to place inside the bathtub for the water to drain inwards. While in the US, the default shower curtain looks like this and has 2 layers. An inside plastic layer and an outside layer that could be any other material, such as cotton, that stays outside of the bathtub. And I know this is more of an aesthetic difference than a functional one, but I personally just like the American shower curtains a lot better. I just think they look really nice. A few other differences you might notice when looking at German and American bathrooms are the floors. German bathrooms usually have tiled flooring and often also tiled walls. In many cases, the tiles go all the way to the top, while in the US, that does happen, but I've also seen many bathrooms here with wooden floors, vinyl floors, and just normal walls, wood walls, or tiles at the bottom half of the bathroom. Okay, so those were all the differences I could think of for a bathroom at home, but we also definitely need to talk about public bathrooms because America, what is up with your stalls? In Germany, public bathroom stalls usually have regular doors and regular walls, so they're like a little room. Sometimes the dividing walls between the different stalls do have a little gap at the top and at the bottom, but in a lot of cases, even those walls are completely closed off. Well, for whatever reason, Americans, who are usually super prude compared to us Germans, thought to themselves, who needs privacy while they're doing their business? And built their bathroom stalls with super high gaps at the bottom, the top, and even gaps at the doors that you can literally look through. So yes, you can watch people wash their hands while you're peeing in the US. That's great. When it comes to urinals in the men's bathrooms, however, the typical American prudery does come back into play because from what I've been told, it's pretty standard to have those little dividers between the urinals in the US, while in Germany, they're often just right next to each other. No divider. Also, public toilets in the US have a U-shaped toilet seat with a gap in the front, which apparently goes back to a regulation from the 1950s and is supposed to give women room to wipe without having to stand up or touch the seat, and also helps keep the toilet clean when men pee standing up. And public toilets here don't usually have a toilet lid either. Reasons for that seem to be saving money and not having to replace broken lids all the time, but also to avoid an extra source of germs that people touch all the time. The biggest culture shock for people in Germany is usually that in some situations, you're gonna have to pay to use the bathroom. Yeah, I know, that doesn't sound so great. Growing up with it, I personally never really minded it, to be honest, but it's definitely something to get used to. In most cases, there will just be a bathroom attendant that sits outside of the bathroom with a little table that has a tipping plate on it where you're supposed to leave some change to tip them for keeping the bathroom clean. It's common to leave a 50-cent coin or 20 cents or whatever you have on you, and sometimes they'll even have a sign set up that names a specific amount. Now, in my personal experience, it's not like they're not gonna let you use the bathroom if you don't have any change on you. And I think from a legal standpoint, you're not obligated to pay. It's technically a voluntary tip, but admittedly, it does often feel pretty weird when everyone else pays except for yourself. But just keep in mind that it is okay if you don't have any change or maybe just don't want to pay. In other cases though, you'll come across these Sanifair bathrooms that have actual turnstiles. So here you definitely have to pay to get in. These are especially common at Autobahn rest stops and at train stations. You usually have to put in 70 cents and then get a 50-cent coupon back that you can use for any purchase at the rest stop or at other rest stops. So technically you only pay 20 cents, and the bathrooms are usually really nice compared to American bathrooms at rest stops and gas stations that are usually pretty nasty. And speaking of gas station toilets in the US, it's actually also really common at those, but also at some fast food restaurants or Starbucks, to have the single room bathrooms with a solo toilet where you basically get a whole room to yourself. I think it's just because we don't have as much space in Germany, but those aren't really a common thing in Germany. Those were all the things I could think of. If there are more differences or tips and tricks, please feel free to share them in the comments below. And if you've ever been in an awkward bathroom situation where you couldn't figure out the door lock or where you had to walk out of the shower in your towel to ask how to turn on the water, I would love to hear those stories too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and activate the bell if you enjoy my content. You can also hit the thumbs up button or even support my channel financially with the super thanks button underneath the video, or join my Patreon family. And of course, you can also find me with additional content on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And I hope I'll see you there or next time here on YouTube. Tschüss!